Hi friends, welcome to Law Chat with Girja. I'm Girja Bhargav Patel, your host for Law Chat, and I am so excited for you to join us today. I have some amazing guests on Law Chat, and they're here to share their experiences and entrepreneurial journey with us, and through their storytelling, mentorship with us, because that is the whole point. We are all entrepreneurs and we're all on a journey, and learning from one another is the best way for us to move forward in our journey as well. And I have amazing guests who are so willing and ready to share their stories with us, their challenges and their victories and their achievements, and also their mindset. I just can't wait to share that with you, and I also just can't wait to have that conversation with them. It's such a privilege to have each and every one of them here with us today, and also it's such a privilege to have you listening in and tuning in. So let's dive in to Law Chat with Girja.
Hi friends, welcome to Law Chat. When you're starting a business as an entrepreneur, sometimes you just start without thinking. And some of the very important elements that we need to make our business successful are forgotten, such as legal or the long-term projections or even brand strategy. Well, on today's Law Chat, I have someone super special, someone I've admired from afar for a while, and she didn't even know it until just today. And I'm just so excited because she's going to be here sharing brand strategy with us, and she's also going to be sharing her entrepreneurial journey with us. But let me tell you something before we start. When I met her in 2016, I saw her at a conference and she was speaking to us and educating us, and everything that came out of her mouth was like golden. But more than that, what I remember about her is the pink blush suede and her calmness and her sereneness. And she's laughing because she's like, I didn't even know. But I remember all of these aesthetics about her. And then I realized that that's her brand. And she left such a deep impact because of her brand. And of course, everything that she was sharing was so educational. But I am so happy to have Bonnie Bakhtiari with us today. She is the founder and CEO of B for Bonnie Design. And I am just so happy she's here and she'll share her journey and her tips with us. Welcome, Bonnie, to Law Chat with Girja.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So honored by that incredibly warm and just so incredibly thoughtful introduction. And I'm just really grateful to be here and excited to be sharing part of my journey, part of my experience in the brand strategy industry, and just have a, open and honest conversation with you today. So thanks again for having me.
Yeah, I love it. Law Chat makes me meet such amazing humans, and it's just every single person that's been on Law Chat has great stories to share, and it's really nice because it can get raw sometimes, and it can also be like oh gosh, I haven't thought about that in so many years. And it's because we all have that entrepreneurial journey, and they're filled with challenges, but they're filled with victories also. And so I want to talk to you a little bit from the beginning. Like, where did you get that entrepreneurial spirit? Did you already have it, or were you just like, I'm done with college, okay, I'm going to start my business? So how did it start?
That's such a great question. And I love that you asked that. So actually, when I sit down and I think about like where the entrepreneurial spirit came from, I guess probably one of my first or earliest examples of what entrepreneurship looked like in action was my dad. My dad actually is an entrepreneur, and he started his own business when I was about 11 years old. And I remember just seeing, he worked from home office. And so I got to see him in action kind of behind the scenes a lot of the time. And it was really I remember like at a young age, just being really impressed by the energy and the heart and the just kind of creativity that went into the work that he was doing, this business he was building. And I mean, I say creativity, I think of creativity coming to life in so many kind of unconventional ways. Like I of course, we think about it in terms of creating art or music or something like that, even design. But my dad is an electrical engineer by trade. And so seeing him kind of show up and use analytical thinking and creative problem solving to grow this business, to build it and grow it, was really amazing. So actually, I am an accidental entrepreneur. Like, had so much respect for my dad over the years growing that business and like providing for our family in that way. But I also saw how much like work went into it. And I was like, that is not for me. I am not about that. I want to just have like, I don't want to be my own boss. I just want to like get the 9 to 5 and just like show up and clock out and like leave work at the office. But it was actually my senior year of college, and I was engaged at the time. I was getting ready to graduate from college, and then later that year get married, and then move across the country. And I started thinking about, okay, what am I going to do? Like, I want to do something. I want to have something that I am able to take ownership of and create, and I want to contribute. What does that look like? And just kind of the answer that fell into my head at that time was start a business, just have a website, do something that you can do from anywhere. Just have something that all you need is your laptop and yourself and your brain, and that's that. And so I thought, this is probably just going to be for a season. We'll try this thing out. We'll see what happens. We'll just, like have fun with it. And little did I know that was 9 years ago. And here I am today with this business that I grew off of the same laptop that I used in my college classes to take notes. I grew it from a little Etsy shop at the time, and that's how I was taking sales. And this very, very scrappy website that I am I'm trying to block it from my memory because it was not what you want to see from a professional designer, but we all start somewhere. Yeah. And I just wanted to get something up there, and I wanted to just, kind of get this out into the world. So actually, funnily enough, I started my business offering wedding and engagement stationery for couples. And so, at that season of my life, I was also newly engaged, planning a wedding. Weddings were on the brain. Right. And I was designing our own wedding stationery. And I had all these different designs that I had gone through on my computer. And I was like, these are, not to toot my own horn, but these are pretty okay. I wouldn't be mad if, we went with any one of these designs. And so I thought, well, I already have these created, and I just wonder if I kind of throw these up on Etsy and I sold them as customizable, so semi-custom printable wedding suites and save the date suites and things like that, if people would buy them. And they did. And that momentum starts to build. And so as the sales started to come in, I started creating more. I started experimenting more. I started really kind of honing my design style, albeit in a different medium than brand design and brand strategy. But as I was kind of growing that side of things, a lot of my friends around the same time were either just graduated from college or about to graduate, and they were starting side hustle businesses, like getting into wedding planning or becoming photographers or thinking about something like that. And they would reach out to me and say, hey, Bonnie, I need help with creating some business cards. Could you design a logo for me? And, of course, at that time, being a brand new business owner, being fresh out of college, I was like, yes, I can do that. I can absolutely do that. And you just say yes, and you just dive into it, even if maybe you don't have all the expertise yet at that point. But I'm so grateful that I had friends that kind of took that chance and bet on me in that way and reached out to me, because as I started getting into their brand design, their logo design, helping them kind of map out the wireframes of websites and things like that, it was just this instant click in my mind of, this is kind of the sweet spot for me, of taking my degree, which is in journalism with an emphasis in news editorial. So my background is in writing, and then taking my love of design and the experience that I gained in college around graphic design, taking that, marrying the two together to help entrepreneurs, especially service-based entrepreneurs, build strong visual identities founded on a clear sense of strategy that position them as the go-to expert that their clients are looking for. So that's probably way more background than you were looking for, but kind of in a roundabout way, right? Roundabout way. I started from very, very scrappy, kind of humble, beginnings to now I'm at the point where like I said, I've had this business for 9 years. And over those 9 years, I've had the honor of working with hundreds of women entrepreneurs in the creative industry to build brands that are an authentic reflection of who they are and who they serve and the transformation that their work provides. And along the way, I have been fortunate enough to get into education and to teach fellow creatives about brand design and strategy, but also to coach fellow graphic brand and web designers about really what it takes to build a sustainable, purposeful, and profitable design business too.
That's so amazing. And it's really, truly a nutshell of your entire journey. I mean, I remember when I had first heard you speak in 2016, it was really eye-opening for me as a super baby business entrepreneur. Super baby, didn't even know I was doing it type of a situation. And it was very encouraging. And also, I just felt like, okay, I need to do something now. I need to start it right away. I hate to interrupt this awesome conversation, but I have to stop and talk with you about the number one thing I'm asked about by entrepreneurs: contracts. They're vital to any business relationship and to protect your business. But I also know that entrepreneurs, especially when you're starting up, money is tight. But I would never want you to compromise on a strong legal foundation. So enter yourcontractbuddy.com, a website created by me with contract templates created and drafted by me and fellow industry partners. They're ready to use and easy to plug in immediately, and they are not restricted to any specific state. So yourcontractbuddy.com is sponsoring this episode, and you and your listener can get 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. Yes, you heard me right. 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. And now, back to our awesome conversation. I want to kind of rewind a little bit and kind of talk about actually that when you graduated, were you looking for a job at that time, or were you just like, you know what, I'm just going to start my own business? And what was the mindset shift or the mindset that you needed to have in order to just even literally, I'm just going to start with my website, even if it's scrappy, I don't care. Because a lot of times people are waiting.
Right. Yeah,
So
that's a really good point too. And especially as, a brand designer and strategist, I see that so often where even, I have worked with clients before who they come to me and say, oh, I just kept putting this off because I didn't have, my website put together or things like that. But I've also seen on the flip side, so many incredibly talented entrepreneurs who were working together because they're going through a rebrand, and they're rebranding from that scrappy kind of DIY website to something that is fully custom and really elevated. And that's such a powerful example of this idea that so many people out there are just doing it, even with kind of the scrappy beginnings. And you don't have to wait until it's perfect. You don't have to wait until the stars align or some kind of like magical thing happens. You can take that imperfect action, and that imperfect action often will propel you forward, and it will help you grow and start to see what success you can experience, more so than if you just kind of like sat around and waited for, like when you were like ready, so to speak. But in my own journey, when I was getting ready to graduate from college, I was definitely going through kind of that like new grad kind of like job search where I was sending out my resume. I was, like polishing up all the cover letters. I was doing kind of that whole routine. And I never started that website with the intent of that being my primary gig. I 100% was like, this will be great if it helps us pay a few bills, or something like that. But it's not something that I had these grand aspirations of like, this is going to be a 6-figure business and we're going to, do all these amazing things as a result. And so I actually, when we moved to California, so I'm from Texas originally. At the time I was living in Texas, and that's actually where I live today. But we were living in Texas, moved to California, and I was interviewing with some employers in the area, and was offered the position at a company that would have been a really great fit for me. And at that point, that was a few months after graduation, and so the website had been up and running for a bit, and I started working with my friends and starting to get those word of mouth referrals for more brand design type projects. And I felt like I was at this crossroads where I could go and kind of take what I saw as the safer option of going to the corporate 9-to-5, having that office job, having that security, but the downside, not having the flexibility of setting my hours, not having, the freedom of working from home, all of those kinds of things. Definitely like positives, but also some, negatives for me,
trade-offs.
The way that I saw it. Yeah, trade-offs, absolutely. Or I was seeing at that point that like, okay, this little business can be more than a hobby. It can be something that produces income. And if I choose to go all in on this idea and on myself, I actually think that I could generate a consistent income for myself based off of this. And so I turned down the job offer and decided to go all in on it. And it was definitely a gamble at the time, but it paid off. And it was something that I knew, like at that point, to me, I saw it as a crossroads. Go the traditional kind of 9-to-5 route, or go your own way and kind of blaze your own trail. But in order to do that, and in order for that to be successful, you have to commit to yourself. You have to believe that this is possible for yourself, because if you are already right out of the gate believing that it's not possible, you're creating a reality for yourself that limits you and that tells you that you can only achieve so much success. So I was like, all right, we're going to do this thing. I don't know how it's going to look. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'm going to believe that it's possible. And what that looked like for me was just honestly baby steps, putting like one foot in front of the other, not necessarily knowing where it was going, but believing that it was leading somewhere. And for me, at that point in my journey, and I'll admit there was a lot of privilege that I had to get to that point in my life. And my husband, he had a stable job at that time that was providing for us. So I had a safety net that other people don't necessarily have at that point. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And I do think that it's important to share that, to kind of like paint a very full and accurate picture of that journey. But for me personally, at that point in my life of taking the leap and going all in on the business, the mindset shift that I think I first needed to really have in order to make that happen was that I'm worth this. This is possible. And if I believe it's possible, I can create a reality for myself in which this success and this consistent income and this freedom of having your own business and choosing where your time and energy goes, that can be possible.
I think it's so incredible that at such a young age, you had so much wisdom. Honestly. So I think either when you're that young, you feel invincible and you feel like I can do anything, or it's the alternate where you're just like, oh gosh, I'm so scared. I'm not worth it. And I think it's so brilliant that your mindset was full of wisdom. It wasn't the invincible, false, invincibility that we think sometimes we have when we're young, but it was definitely bold. And I love how you talked about limiting yourself. And if we think those thoughts, we automatically subconsciously are limiting ourselves. Whereas if we say we can do it, we've abundantly opened the gates for things to come in. And also just leaping in faith and having that faith to keep you moving forward. I think that's so brilliant. And kudos to you and to your parents for so much wisdom at such a young age. I just love that.
I do want to mention, like, of course, like, I was in my like very early 20s at that point in time. Yeah. There was still some of that, like, crazy, like, oh, I can do anything, like I'm invincible kind of thing. So, there's definitely, I'm grateful that at that crossroads and in that moment that I thankfully had a little bit more foresight and like thought through it more analytically than just saying heck yes and taking the leap and diving in head first. Thinking that I could do anything because I was, like young and invincible. Yeah. There's a little bit of craziness that I think went into it too.
I think we all have that. Like there's some element of this boldness that kind of might be, shrouded with this unexpected false thing happening in our brain, like, oh yeah, whatever. But really the thing is, I honestly think though, that we have to keep moving forward. And if that does mean whether it's in faith or whether you have some false misconceptions about reality, but the idea is to have that faith in yourself and in whatever is your anchor, like whatever anchors you to whenever you do hit challenges. Speaking of challenges though, what were some of the challenges you faced at that time? And then also as you've grown in your business, what have been some challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When you're starting a new business, as I'm sure like those who are listening and tuning in today can totally relate to, like there's so many challenges. And when I started my business, I mean, I was having to create everything from scratch and I didn't have any blueprint of how this design business could look, because honestly, at that point, I didn't know anyone who had a design business. I didn't know anyone who's doing what I wanted to do. So I was creating marketing plans from scratch. We've already talked about my scrappy website. I was doing all my design on my own from, kind of building everything from the ground up. And so I was like generating client inquiries at that point from word of mouth referrals, like just leaning on people that I'd worked with in the past. And then thankfully at that point, like I said, I had initially started my business with a little Etsy shop. And at that point, this was back in 2012, and Etsy was not as challenging. Now there's a lot of strategy that goes into growing an Etsy shop, but at that point in time, it was a bit easier. It wasn't quite as saturated. There wasn't so many features. It was kind of like a part of your account as well. So for me, I was changing my shop from wedding paper goods and stationery to just some small branding packages. And thankfully at that point, the way that I had my listings set up, Etsy was kind of like its own little Google search engine for me. Mm-hmm. And I was generating clients through Etsy and through word of mouth referrals. And it wasn't until probably a year in that I really transitioned from using Etsy to generate sales and driving traffic to my website for my services, which is obviously now I don't even have that Etsy shop anymore. It's just everything is, generated 100% from my website. But I think at that point, kind of generating those leads, figuring out how to market yourself. Instagram was definitely something that as entrepreneurs, we were using at that point in time, but it was very different from what it is today. Definitely it was something where you were just posting. That was back before the algorithm kind of kicked in. And so you were just posting in real time, like, what you were doing kind of in the moment. And so it was very much like an evolution of starting out with, like, I'm a big fan of the idea of like taking imperfect action. And that's absolutely what I was doing at that point in my business. I was, kind of trying different things, building a connection with other entrepreneurs in the industry to kind of build those word of mouth referrals and generate consistent revenue in that way. And every project that I took on was a learning opportunity. And so, kind of from there, then growing into a business that does operate with a solid marketing plan and, does generate consistent revenue. And I'm so grateful to work with just really incredible women through my design services as a result. But it was definitely like an adventure at the beginning, lots of steps, but also lots of missteps. Mm-hmm. And I think that this kind of is a theme that we have sort of running through our conversation here today. But one of the big takeaways that I can see just looking back on kind of that imperfect start is the idea that by just doing something, by putting yourself out there, even though that feels uncomfortable, especially if you're an introvert like I am, or if you don't love constantly talking about your services or your products or your offerings online, it can be uncomfortable to start to get out in front of strangers on the internet and talk about what you do. But no one is going to know that they can work with you if you don't tell them that they can work with you. And so especially as a new entrepreneur, even if you have a beautiful website, even if you have like a totally curated Instagram feed, if you're not telling people how you can help them, how they can work with you, how they can buy your products, they are not going to know just innately how to show up and give you their hard-earned dollars. So it's important, and this is something that I definitely learned, it's important to slowly, consistently show up, share value online, and then point people to how you can serve them, how they can grow through the services or the products you provide. So I think looking back on that now, especially when I was getting started, learning how to market myself, that was not my second nature. That was very uncomfortable for me. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. It can be, especially when you're just getting started, it can be uncomfortable to talk about who you are and what you do and mm-hmm. point people towards the way that they can hire you or buy from you or work with you. But you are running a business, and the work that you do has the ability to help the clients and the customers that you serve, it is such a gift and such an incredible responsibility and honor to show up for those people online through your social media channels, through your website, through your blog or your podcast or your YouTube channel, and show them how you can help and how they can grow as a result of working with you. So I think that's one of like the big lessons that I learned, and something that I'm still constantly reminding myself of too.
Right. That is brilliant advice, actually. That's something that I've been also told. Just be consistent. Show up, be consistent. Whether or not you have one follower or thousands and thousands, or whether or not people are engaging, just show up. And I think that's hard because you do feel defeated when you are not having engagement, especially with the algorithms and this and that. I mean, I know I personally have felt it. I'm sure you might have probably felt it at some point in time. So how do you overcome that disappointment or that defeated feeling?
I love that question because it is something that I think we all wrestle with over the years when, I have even just in conversations with fellow creatives in the entrepreneurial community. It's so easy, especially I don't know if you feel this way too, but living in an age and doing business at a time where there are so many different channels and so many different platforms and so many different ways to market your business, it can feel like there's a lot of pressure to be everywhere online and to be everywhere online all of the time. And so when we don't see the results we want to see, or we don't see the sales, or when people say no, or when people, say not nice things to you or about you, it's so hard not to take that personally. But for me, what has really been helpful is changing my mindset about what people are saying no to. So let's kind of look at it from the standpoint of, a business service provider is talking about their services on Instagram, and you're showing up and you're talking about the incredible work that you do, the incredible kinds of clients that you serve, and the kind of transformation or growth or results that your work delivers. When people work with you, that's the kind of growth that they're going to be able to see. When people say no to that, or when people don't click through to your website or sign up for your email list or book a free consult call with you or buy from you, instead of looking at that and thinking they're saying no to me, they're saying no to me as the service provider behind this brand, instead shift your attention to they're saying no to the transformation that my work provides. Because really, when we think about marketing, even if we do have a personal brand, and I would consider that I have a personal brand, I'm very much the face of my brand. But when people are saying no, if I hop on a sales call with a potential branding client and it doesn't end up being the best fit, I do not take that personally anymore, because I have focused my messaging around the work that I do and the transformation that it provides to my ideal client. And so at this point, if someone is saying no, they're taking a look at that messaging and they're saying, that's nice, but it's not quite for me. And that's the beautiful thing about doing business in a open market where there's so many other options and so many other designers or photographers or coaches or service providers out there for all different kinds of clients. So I know that, and this is kind of almost like a muscle that you have to build up and strengthen over time, right, where it's probably not going to be an instantaneous transition of, okay, I'm not going to take it personally overnight, but slowly remind yourself, kind of build up that association in your mind that when people aren't connecting with you, or when people aren't connecting with the services that you offer, it's not because they don't like you, it's because something about your messaging doesn't resonate. And so it's an opportunity to look at your messaging and say, okay, how is this communicating the level of service that I offer, the transformation that service provides, and who this is for? So how this connects to my ideal client. And if your messaging isn't covering those pieces, it honestly might just be there's a level of confusion in your ideal clients when they come across your work, or they come across your content on Instagram or wherever you're hanging out. They're just not getting the full picture. And so it's just, it's definitely, from my standpoint, it's not something to take personally. It's something to, kind of remind ourselves, it's not you, it's your messaging. And then if it's your messaging, that's amazing, because that's an opportunity for growth.
Gosh, that shift in perspective was one mind blowing for me. And now I am like, my wheels are turning for my own business. And I think that's so true because we take a lot of things personally because it is personal for our business. This is our baby.
Yeah.
But we do have to separate ourselves from that aspect of whether there's conversion or not, because you're right. A lot of times the messaging is confusing or it's not exactly what they want to hear. And that is just so brilliant. That was just, I've just like, literally, I'm just thinking about it now. And I'm like, I need to change something in my business. But no, I think that's beautiful. And that really does take time to practice, just like any other, intentions that you're trying to put out there or have an intentional living. It all takes muscle memory. And the more you do it, the more it becomes part of your lifestyle and not something you're working on every single day. But I think it's so true. Having a shift in perspective also allows you to not feel defeated all the time. And I love that. And so thank you so much for sharing that. That was so brilliant. I loved it. And so as you've moved along and now you've also added so many different facets to your business and diversified it even more. So how did that change come about and when did those pivots happen?
So I would say that a lot of those changes kind of happened earlier on. So like I said, just kind of to give sort of a more like complete timeline of my business, I started in 2012, probably in around 2015 or so is when I started really getting into education. So that was a point in my business where I was being invited to speak at conferences and teach more and things like that. And with those opportunities, I was really all of a sudden aware of, just the knowledge that I had gleaned or the workflows I'd created or the systems that I had put into place over those 3 years that other newer entrepreneurs could benefit from. And that was something that I was incredibly passionate about. So, I know how even, 9 years in, I'm still learning, I'm still growing. And I love the idea of if I can make someone else's journey a little smoother, maybe a little less bumpy, maybe a little faster, I would love to do that because that just means that you're able to start to realize your dreams faster, and you're also able to have more of an impact in the lives of your clients or your students, your customers through the work that you do. So in 2015, I started educating more and introduced that kind of education facet to BS for Bonnie Design. And ever since then, it has been something that there are, a few ways that people can work with me. And one to this day is still my primary services of custom brand design and strategy. But then also in the education side of my business, there are, a few different ways that I work with creative entrepreneurs and especially designers through courses and coaching and things like that. And I'm going to be totally honest, whenever you're adding in new services, and this is something that I learned too, I only felt comfortable adding in something new. So diving into education, because my primary service, my primary stream of revenue, which is brand design, that was already generating consistent revenue. And that did not require like active time and energy on my part to go out and secure new clients. Mm-hmm. That was something that, of course, working with my clients, that took active time and energy in my presence, but I didn't have to worry about that side of my business. So I felt the freedom to try something new, to introduce new streams of revenue, because I already had one that was functioning. And in some ways, at least from a lead generation standpoint, it was functioning on autopilot. Right. And so I was able to then experiment with something new and kind of get that up to that point. And that's something that I'm such a big believer of. When you're growing a business and when you're wanting to introduce a new stream of revenue, it's so much easier to do that if your existing revenue streams are operating like well-oiled machines. And so you have more of your full time and energy and focus and creativity to bring towards growing the new thing, doing the new thing, starting your course or your online shop or getting into coaching or whatever that looks like for you as an individual. So that was, sort of a really big lesson that I learned and a big decision that actually made it easier for me to grow the education side of my business, which now to this day, that's pretty reflective of what my business looks like. And over the years, some of those revenue streams, they served me well for a season. I think that a beautiful thing about having your own business is you get to choose when you do things and for how long you're doing those things, and you get to change and you get to pivot. So some of the courses, I'm thinking back, I had like a slew of online courses in 2016, 2017. I don't offer those anymore because they were great for that kind of snapshot in time in my business, and it was a great thing to offer. But as you grow and as your business grows, it's only natural that some of your products or some of your services, they're either going to change or they might be retired altogether, and that's okay, because what that does is it just gives you the ability to try new things, help more people, have more of an impact through the work that you do, generate revenue as a business. And then when that has, kind of lived its full life cycle, you can move on to a new idea. And hopefully the goal anyway is hopefully as you're moving on to what's next, you're taking with you your knowledge and your expertise and the things you've learned along the way. So every new thing you're doing, it's serving at a higher level. It's helping more people. It's having more impact, and it's helping you do more of what you love doing in the industry too.
Mm-hmm. What great advice. I think a lot of times we get excited and we start adding and diversifying, but then we have to still pour in so much of our time in the other aspect of our business, getting the lead, like you're right, the lead generation, getting the customers and the clients in, that it's hard to really pour that energy and time into something new that you're creating as well. And I think that is such great advice is, yeah, you have to still do the work for the client, but bringing the clients in is not work anymore. And that's the beauty of it. That is such great advice. I love that. So now we're like talking a little bit more about brand strategy and your business. So, we have listeners who are new business owners and then also people who are seasoned. But what are some of your top tips? I'm not going to give a number because I don't know what the number might be. But some of your top tips on creating a good, solid brand strategy.
I love that you have people tuning in who are in different seasons of business. And I think that with brand strategy, something that I like to remind my clients who've been in business for years and who are seasoned pros, there's no substitute for a strong foundation, especially when it comes to your brand strategy and your brand as a whole. So even if you've been in business for 10, 15 years, there's something so powerful about getting back to the basics of brand strategy and ensuring that as your business grows, it's growing in a direction that aligns with how you're defining success, what your values are, what your differentiators are, who your ideal clients are, and kind of like I said earlier, that transformation, that growth or that benefit that your services or your products offer to those ideal clients. So whether you're just getting started or you've been in business for years, I always recommend kind of breaking things down into the basics. And this is something that can seem like a little counterintuitive, because a lot of the time when we think about branding, we think more about the design side of things. So we think about logos, color palettes, websites, all the beautiful things. But as a strategist, before I get to that design portion of things with my clients, we first are beginning with strategy so that we're making informed and really strategy-backed design decisions as we get to that point in kind of the process, the branding process. So if you are, kind of going through a little bit of this process by yourself, I recommend taking the time to look at who you are, like from a business standpoint, sitting down and really understanding what your business is, what your business offers. So are you a coach? Are you a photographer? Are you a designer? Are you a lawyer? Who are you in the context of your business? What do you do? So what kind of services do you offer? And then what kind of growth should your ideal clients or ideal customers experience as a result of your services. So if you are a photographer, let's say you're a wedding photographer and your primary service is going to be wedding photography, wedding coverage. So the transformation or the value that your people are going to see as a result of hiring you to capture their wedding and that celebration, maybe it's going to be, they're going to have heirloom quality images that they can treasure for generations to come. Or maybe it's going to be they are able to dive into their wedding day feeling fully present because they don't have to worry about who's capturing those memories and those moments because you, as a photographer, have them covered. So, kind of thinking about who you are, what you do, how your work adds value, the transformation that it offers, and then kind of that final layer, who it's for. So your ideal client. And when you think about your ideal client, I want you to know them so intimately that you could kind of, if you were sitting down over coffee with them, you'd be able to strike up conversations about what they really value, who they are, what kinds of hobbies or, ways they like to spend their time with, or what kinds of priorities they have when it comes to their business or their life. And so when you're thinking about creating who your ideal clients are, it's such a powerful and beautiful opportunity to think through these incredible individuals, whether you are working with other business owners or you are a business and you work direct to consumers. And so by thinking through those things, I know that as kind of like a description, it might seem more like an abstract process, but really what you're doing there is you're identifying more of, what your business is about, the services that you offer, so those potential revenue streams, but you're taking it a step further. You're going even deeper. You're not just looking at kind of the basics of what you do and what you offer, but you're thinking about the transformation, the kind of growth and the kind of results that your ideal clients are going to see if they choose to hire you or they choose to buy from you. And then you're getting really specific about who those ideal clients are. So then you're able to take that and you're able to elevate your messaging on any social platforms. You're able to update like your Instagram bio or your Clubhouse bio or the content on your blog, your podcast, any of those kinds of things from a messaging standpoint, because when we think about brand strategy, it's not just design. There's also that messaging component to it as well. But knowing that is going to then help you, whether you partner with a professional designer or maybe you go the DIY route, it's going to help you understand because you know who you are, you know how your work provides a clear transformation, and you know who your ideal clients are, you're able to then pull in design details. And this is especially where a professional can come in and help, but you're able to pull in design details that speak to those people and that really communicate the right message about who you are and what you do. So I always recommend starting with the basics, even if you are a seasoned pro, because as you grow, as your business grows, you gain so much more insight and you gain so much more understanding of who your ideal clients, and you see so much more in action of the incredible results that your work can provide or the incredible transformations that your work is able to deliver to your ideal clients. So even if you've been in business for years, this is something personally, I revisit this frequently in my business because I want to bring more nuance and more understanding and more insight into kind of that initial overview of those incredible people. So I know more of how I can serve them well and how that can all come together in a way that reflects where I am in that season of business.
Mm-hmm. What great tips. I love that because I do believe that there's an evolution of the ideal client also. And it's sometimes I feel like I'm on repeat when I'm describing them. But then there's like some little nuances, like you said. But you know what I really love about everything that you have said from the beginning of this interview is you keep touching on it because it's so ingrained in how you provide services, but it's the transformation that your client or your ideal client is wanting to achieve and feel. And I think sometimes we miss that little element, that connector between what we're providing and our message, and then ultimately how our client is feeling. But it's truly that transformation, and that is what you're trying to attract, or you're using to attract people. And I think I love that. Like that has literally just stuck out for me this whole time.
I love that. And I think that, there's a reason why I keep focusing on that. And I probably sound like a bit of a broken record at this point, but it's
Yeah.
because when we think about the way that a customer or a consumer makes a decision about hiring someone or buying a product or something like that, they are, of course, they're aware of all of the features of that product or that service. They're aware of like what goes into it. They're aware of, how like beautiful it is or something like that. But more than that, we want them to be thinking about how it's going to impact their lives, how it's going to impact them in a way where it's delivering some kind of transformative value that after they buy this or after they hire you, once they've implemented whatever your product or your service is, their life is going to change for the better. And it could change very, very like in a very subtle way. It doesn't have to be like this dramatic life altering kind of growth. It could be something as simple as you're selling a product or a service that makes just a teeny little thing easier. Like maybe it's, it makes doing the dishes faster, or it makes, meal planning for your family and for your kids more stress-free and more streamlined each week. Or, there's so many different like little ways that this can come to, that transformation behind your work can come to play. But the impact is still the same, where you are using your products or your services to create a kind of growth where your clients and your customers are walking away changed in a positive way. And that's what's exciting people about you and about what you do. And that's going to be what helps them say an easy and clear and confident yes to you and your brand, is when they see that transformation. Again, it's not about you. It's not about, how cute your social media presence is or anything like that. It's 100% about that transformation. And it's something that motivates them so dramatically to eagerly and excitedly hand over their credit card info and hire you on the spot or buy from you on your website.
Right. I feel like doing that with you right now. And so I feel like you're like speaking my language, and I just cannot wait to I'm like, okay, how am I transforming my clients' lives?
Yes, I love that.
You have shared so many golden nuggets with us this entire time that we've spoken. And I feel like I can just keep on going with you. But I do want to know one thing. I asked this of all my guests, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, but what is your anchor? What is the thing that holds you steady? And just, not just when you are feeling downright blah, but also to hold steady your humbleness and reality. What is your anchor?
I love this question. I'm the kind of person where I love kind of going deep with people and hearing, these kinds of values and beliefs. And so I'm like going to have to steal that because I want to talk to everyone I know now and ask them this question. But
you're more than welcome to.
Thanks. Personally, I would say that my anchor, when I think about what keeps me grounded in this business and this brand of mine, it's the idea that the work that I do and my commitment to showing up has an impact in the lives of those that I work with. And by doing that, it empowers other women entrepreneurs to feel the freedom to show up for their own dreams. And so when they do that, they're able to pursue what they're passionate about, build a business that helps them feel grounded and connected to their purpose, and then changes their life because it helps them create consistent income and have a profitable business. And I think there's something really magical that happens when women feel that freedom and feel that level of empowerment to pursue their passion, to have profitable businesses, and to build the realities that they want to experience. And so to me, I see that very much as a very interconnected kind of reaction. Like when I choose to, even on the days when it's hard, even when I don't want to, even when, things are tough or I've got stuff going on in my personal life, my commitment to showing up, it's not about me. It's not about this business. It's not about my ego. It's about, I think, creating the reality and creating possibility for the lives of the women that I am really, really honored and humbled to work with. And so that's a thought, kind of like an overall vision that really keeps me grounded and keeps me showing up even when it's not fun.
Yeah. Thank you. I love that. I think it's true. Like having that commitment sometimes, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, what am I doing all this for? And then I'm like, wait a second. I do have a purpose. And it brings me back to sometimes having a mission for your business. If you don't already have one, create a mission for your business. And then also referring back to it every time you are kind of questioning what's happening. And so I feel like that's your mission, is what you just shared with us. So thank you so much. And of course, this was Law Chat, and we were kind of discussing about this earlier, but if there's anything that you're like, gosh, you got to have this in your life in the legal realm, or you wish you had known this before you started, what would be that?
We talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but like contracts. Oh my goodness, contracts, so important. And I say that from, having like started my little scrappy business from my like little teeny apartment in college, from my my college bedroom. I, of course, did not start my business having like a contract in place for the, very first, like my first friend that came to me and was like, hey, Bonnie, can you design a logo for me? Like, I didn't think about that. And thankfully I haven't had any like crazy legal struggles or woes or anything like that. But even just thinking about it from a service standpoint, if you're an entrepreneur, you provide a service to your clients, it is so crucial that you have a contract or an agreement in place before you start working that outlines the project scope. And the reason why, and of course, this is like, I have zero legal experience or training, so like not a lawyer, but but you
experience is everything.
But thinking about outlining in that client contract the scope of work that you're taking on and what that includes, and then how your client can add on or change that project scope. So the reason why I'm such a believer in that, especially if you're a service-based business like I am, is that it's so easy for project kind of scope creep to happen, where we start working with someone and hopefully they love the experience, and they're like, oh, I also want to add on this and this, and can you do this for me? And can we do this? And as an entrepreneur, you're seeing that and you're like, you want to pay me more money to do more work? Absolutely, let's do it. But it's so important to have that outlined in your contract so that what that does, it just sets those expectations for you as the entrepreneur and the service provider, and then for your client as the recipient of those services, so that you understand what you are obligated to create or what work you're obligated to do as outlined in that agreement. And then on their end, on the receiving end, they know what they can expect and what they're receiving from you. And it's very clear that if they want to make changes or if they want to add on, how they can submit those requests to you, what the investment, if there's an additional investment, what that can look like, so that you are not getting knocked off your timeline, or you're not getting asked to do way more work than you're able to do, or you're thinking that you're getting asked to do something and you have to do it at a discounted rate or something like that, or you feel, kind of insecure about what that additional investment can look like because that's not outlined in that agreement. So it's kind of a boring clause maybe, but it's a necessary one, because even if you're having the most amazing experience with a client, and they want to make changes, it's just so powerful. It's so helpful for you to know and for them to know what those expectations are as outlined in kind of that project scope overview in your contract. And then from there, you have the freedom as the service provider to say yes to those requests, say no to those requests. And you don't have to be like the big bad person who, says no to your client. You can just point back to your contract and say, as outlined in our contract, X, Y, and Z. And I think that it just helps you look so polished, so put together, protects you in so many different ways, serves your client even better because expectations are clearly outlined, and it's just really worth it if you ask me.
I like everything you have said is like what I'm constantly preaching also, because expectations are so important to manage in a relationship, and there can be, scope creep and things like that absolutely happen. And sometimes even for the clients, they should know what they're getting, and what, if all those are not ticked off, then find out, why is that not ticked off? What just happened? So it works both ways. And I think I just love it. You were literally just kind of spoke my language again. So it's wonderful.
I love that.
Oh, I love it too. I am just so happy you joined us today. And I just wanted to kind of go through some fun facts with you, just, kind of get to know you a little bit more. But what is your preference of beverage? Coffee, tea, or sparkling water? Or none of the above?
That's such a fun question. I'm definitely a coffee person. I'm over here and I've got like my coffee like out of the screen. Yep, you do too. Yeah, I'm definitely the kind of girl who goes for an oat milk latte whenever I get the chance.
Oh, nice. And you're in Waco. You're in Waco, right?
I am. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you some Waco questions because I'm obsessed. I love Waco. I'm from Houston. I go to Waco and it's like literally my happy spot because of Chip and Joanna Gates. I just love them. Have you had their coffee?
At Magnolia Press, yes. I love, that's whenever anyone comes to visit me from out of town, I'm like, we're going to Magnolia Press, we're getting coffee, it's going to be great. If you want a pastry, you should also get one of those too. And then like just sitting in that like open space that they have, or if the weather's nice, they have this really beautiful outdoor space as well. It's just such a great place to visit.
I mean, I think it's just so beautiful over there. Mm-hmm. And legitimately their coffee, I don't know if you've ever bought the bag from them. So we bought a whole bunch of, ground coffee from them, and it is the best coffee I have had so far. It's so good. But yeah, I'm obsessed with them. I'm obsessed with that whole, and talk about transformation. Like they are crushing it on that concept. But when, just going back to our business though, the tools and the apps and the resources, what are some of your favorite tools, apps, or resources?
Yeah. I love the like tools and apps and things that I use to run my business. And I actually use HoneyBook as my CRM, or my client relationship management tool. So that's how I handle invoicing, client, any kind of like client worksheets or questionnaires, timelines, things like that. All of that's in HoneyBook. I also love using Asana for internal project management. So that just helps me and my like small but mighty team stay on the same page of like what we're doing and whose responsibility it is to do what, and just kind of keeps us focused. And then I'm a big Google, like G Suite / Google person. Like I love Gmail, Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Drive, just in terms of like creating files. And like, if you haven't figured this out about me, like I'm very much the kind of person where like done is better than perfect. I would rather take like imperfect action that propels us forward than like, kind of sit around and make sure something is like internally in my own business. Definitely not this way with my clients, but internally in my own business, I would rather just like throw together a quick Google Doc or, quick little Google spreadsheet or something like that to kind of track data or pursue planning goals or share content. So the whole like kind of Google Drive and G Suite has been something that I've used pretty much from the beginning, and I love it. So those are some of the tools that I use every day.
Yeah, I think I use them all too every day. So that's wonderful. Yeah. I love Google Doc. I love Google everything. So there you go.
Yes.
Well, how can listeners reach out to you? How can they connect with you?
I am over on Instagram. You can find me at Bonnie Joy Marie is my handle. And I love meeting new people. I love connecting with people. So if you want to shoot me a DM and just say hi, I would love to get to know you. Or if you have a question or something that you want to kind of talk through more based on this interview, would love to get to connect with people in that way. You can find my website at BisForBonnieDesign.com, and that has my blog, tons of free resources for entrepreneurs, more information about my branding services. And of course, if you find me on Instagram, you can find all the links in my bio there. And if you're a fan of podcasts, which if you're tuning in here, I assume you might be, I have my own podcast called the Brand Strategy Podcast, which you can find on Apple Podcasts or really wherever you tune into your favorite shows.
I love that. I'm going to have all the links on the show notes as well. So you're going to be easily accessible. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I am just so happy that we were able to have this chat, and you've just shared so much knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such an amazing conversation, and like just the questions that you shared and ways that you focused on, you know, so many incredible like mindset shifts and things like that. It was just really, it was also fun to kind of get to like walk back memory lane on my end and sort of like think back to some of those like more humble beginnings. And I'm just really grateful to have had this conversation with you and to have had a chance to kind of come and share a little bit about my own journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining Law Chat with Girja. I love these kind of stories and conversations where we can be real, honest, and open, and having fun at the same time. I hope you are inspired and motivated to keep doing the amazing work you are doing. If this is something that gave you all those feels and then some, truly motivated and inspired for you, you can show your love in all or one of these ways. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and share this video with your community and tell them about it, or share with somebody that can benefit from it. I look forward to seeing you next time on another episode of Law Chat, and until then, keep moving forward. Bye.